Alright, hello everyone and welcome to Master Paul's Music and Games, and welcome also to Tuesday Night Trek. Usually this is on the main channel, but I decided to mix it up a little bit tonight and have Tuesday Night Trek be a gaming stream. So, we're going to do that. We are going to be playing some Skyrim, and if you'll notice my character, this is a one-time only thing. My character that usually is dressed up in her normal attire is dressed up tonight in the classic original series Star Trek uniform. Hold on a second. I'm missing my Streamlabs app. Hold on. Excuse me. But anyways, okay, I'll just... Oh, there it is. It was right in front of me. Let me just get the chat pulled up here for a second. Connection failed. Okay, we'll do this the old-fashioned way. And look at it through YouTube. Alright, there we go. So, as always with every gaming stream, I am live in the Discord also, so you guys are able to come in and pretty much talk, well, today about these episodes with me, but also talk about anything else once we're done. So, tell you what, we're going to get rid of the tricorder. That's kind of in the way of the sword. But yeah, this is how my character is going to look for this stream and this stream only. And by the way, if you see anything moving that usually isn't, no, you don't see it. So let's get on with it. So we're talking tonight about episodes 6 through 10 of Tuesday Night Trek. Sorry, of Deep Space Nine. And I'm going to really quick pull up those episodes now, just so I can have him in front of me. But overall, these were some great episodes. Hold on. Really? Okay, there we go. Alright, so the episodes we are talking about are Melora, Rules of Acquisition, Necessary Evil, which I'm just going to say right now is my favorite of this block, Second Sight, and Sanctuary. So we'll let the chat sort of populate a little bit here before I get into that. So we're picking up right where we left off, though, with this. I had left off... There was some... I forget, some form of mod I had forgotten to get that I had to stop the stream and do. Also, again, you didn't see anything there. You really didn't see anything there. And Kate... So we'll just go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I cannot turn off those physics. I don't know how. I wanted my character to wear this particular uniform for this stream since it is Trek. So things are going to be a little bit not so family friendly for just tonight. But anyways, so far, I am definitely liking Deep Space Nine Season 2 overall. I'm not even halfway through it yet. But overall, I am definitely liking Deep Space Nine Season 2 more than I'm liking Deep Space Nine Season 1. And truthfully, if I was to make a direct comparison, I think I'm liking Deep Space Nine Season 2 overall so far more than I liked Next Generation Season 2. Although if you were to ask me,
Yes, I suppose it's not something we see very often in Skyrim.
this is different.
Where I come from, they're very common. Valenwood, all the way to the south.
They updated this
What
mod.
about you? Are you from here?
This is different.
I see. Do you know Skyrim very well? I see. I don't suppose you're in need of a traveling companion, are you? I could use someone to show me around this cold, unfamiliar place. I'm a very good archer too, so I could watch your back in return. What do you say? Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
Also, she's wearing a different set of she's wearing a different armor too.
Let's go.
Interesting. All right. Well, anyways, now that we got that, let's go ahead and head on. So, like I said, so far, Deep Space Nine Season 2 is very enjoyable, and I'm very much falling in love with a lot of these characters, especially Odo, as we'll get into a little bit later with the episode Necessary Evil. But all of these characters, to varying degrees, are very much growing on me. Like, right now, I'd say the characters that are kind of the least interesting to me right now is honestly Cisco himself. Not that he's being a bad character at all. It's just everyone else kind of right now is more interesting to me, if that makes sense. But I've already been told that pretty much once Cisco loses the hair on his head and grows out the beard, he becomes a very different character. So I'm looking forward to seeing that particular change. Hold on one second.
What can I do for you? What can I do for you?
I had to message our resident troll just to make sure that he
Hello, there you are.
got the message that I was live.
I have got a personal delivery for you. Just a moment.
So,
An important letter.
let's go ahead and get into these episodes, starting, of course, with
Okay.
Melora.
Bye.
So, this is a Dr. Bashir-centric episode,
Hello there. I don't think you'd be
and I just now noticed, by the way, that Lucian, my follower here, kind of sounds a lot like, he kind of sounds a lot like Dr. Bashir as far as how he talks. Except Dr. Bashir sounds a little bit more manly. But anyways, Bashir is trying to help an ensign in the science division of Starfleet named Melora Paslar accomplish this one mission. I think she was trying to map a certain star sector or something. But what's unique about Melora is that her species, the Elasians, have an entirely different gravity on their planet. Like, their planet, I believe, has no gravity at all. And so in order to get around on in normal gravity, she wears a series of braces on her body and has to use a wheelchair. And she has to, and whenever she's in her quarters, she turns off the gravity in there, basically to allow her to move the way that she's used to. And at first, I thought it was going to be kind of a, well, truthfully, I really don't know what I was expecting. But the story that we ended up getting was very interesting in that it's about accepting, the overall message of the episode ended up being about accepting who you are and why you are the way you are. Like, basically, she has this, we call it a disability, And Dr. Bashir, through his research, figures out a way to eliminate that disability for her so that she could walk around normal. But over time, she starts to realize that if she gets rid of this disability and becomes able to walk like normal, she would lose who she is as an Elasian and pretty much wouldn't be able to go back to her home planet. And she found that she just couldn't give that up. And I thought that was a really... Honestly, I thought that was a really touching story there. You know, you think you want one thing until you realize what it is that you would have to give up to get it, and perhaps for some people it's a fair trade, and some others aren't willing to do it. And that was a trade that she wasn't willing to go through. She wanted to feel close to her heritage from her race, and, you know, she would have had to never visit her home planet again in order to be able to walk normally as far as her day-to-day job in Starfleet goes. So overall, I definitely liked that episode, and I give it a 3.5 out of 5. So I want to just check something again. Give me 1 second, guys. Give me 1 quick second here. I'm trying to figure out a way to, spread the news a little bit more about this stream so we can get some more people watching. It's going to take a minute because I'm going to be spreading this link as many places as I can. And Phil has showed up. What's up, Phil? Phil's being quiet.
I will be right back.
Alright, yeah, take your time, man. I'm literally plugging this in every single Discord that I have for those that are watching right now. And I see Phil said something in the chat. Phil, if you can hear me, you misspelled special. Alright, I have plugged it absolutely everywhere that I can. Phil, are you back with me? I'm gonna take that as a no. So I'll wait till Phil gets back before I keep talking about the episodes, because I want to get his take on it too. Alright, so let's read... What is this? Oh yeah, that's right. This is another mod I downloaded for another follower. Strange letter. We'll handle that later. Alright. That's good. So let's head on now to Riverwood.
Where are you from? Indigo?
I like how Inigo in this game also calls Lucian Julian. And Dr. Bashir's name is Julian Bashir. So, Phil, are you back with me?
Just got back.
There you are. Awesome. So how was your day today?
Yeah, it's been good.
That's good. So you saw the title. I'm playing Skyrim, but I'm also talking Deep Space Nine today, because this stream is basically functioning as Tuesday Night Trek tonight. That's also why my character is dressed the way they are, just for tonight.
Is there not no green uniform?
There's not. It's just the yellow, the blue, and the red, and since my character is the leader of the group, it had to be yellow. Also, like I said, if you see certain parts of my character moving, no, you don't see it.
Isn't that special?
But anyways, the episodes I'm talking about tonight are episodes 6 through 10 of Deep Space Nine Season 2. And the one I just got finished talking about was the one where Dr. Bashir had to help that one girl that was stuck in the wheelchair with her task on Deep Space Nine, and he tried to come up with this treatment to help her walk, but she ultimately denies the treatment because it would have been going against who she was as a race. Do you remember that one?
Not off the top of my head. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, overall, like I said, I thought it was a decent enough episode. The next one was another Ferengi-centric episode called Rules of Acquisition, and we see the Grand Nagus come back. But this time, the story revolves around actually a Ferengi woman named Pell, who is trying to rise above her natural status as a Ferengi woman. Because, Phil, would you care to remind everyone watching how Ferengi women are usually treated?
They're not to wear clothes.
Yep. And they
In
are...
certain circumstances, that might be okay, but there are some circumstances... Oh, no. No.
Yeah. And not only are they not allowed to wear clothing, but they're also not allowed to engage in any sort of earning profit or doing business of any kind, really. They're basically there to be objects, for lack of a better term. And this one Ferengi woman named Pell wasn't satisfied with that, and so she disguises herself as a woman, as a man, and tries to help Quark with this assignment that he had been put on by the Grand Nagus as far as business expansion into the Gamma Quadrant, trying to make this one type of berry that they can use to make wine the most in-demand drink in all of the Gamma Quadrant. And ultimately, she is found out to be a woman at the end. And I really liked how the Grand Nagus reacted at the end of that, where he's literally screaming in horror as she pulls off her fake ears. And he realizes that a woman had been dealing in business and quoting outright the rules of acquisition. Do you remember this episode, Phil?
How can anyone forget?
So what do you think about it?
That was pretty good. I liked it. Kind of like the idea that, them Ferengis are, quite different.
Yes, they are. So I give this episode I give it a 4.5 out of 5. This was an amazing episode. Not quite a full 5 out of 5, but still up there. So, and this episode, it like really made me, hold on, there's a person that's supposed to be here that isn't. Oh, there you are.
You handle yourself well. You could make for a decent shield system.
So anyways, like I said, this episode also really made me finally come to really like the character of Quark. Because, like, this is the episode so far that has really shown his character outside of maybe the Nagus. That, at the end of the day, yes, he is driven by profit, but he's also, he also has, at least by Ferengi standards, a sense of morals. Is that about the best way to put it, Phil?
I would say so.
Yeah. The next episode, Necessary Evil, however, is an even better episode, and that's the episode that really made me fall in love with Odo as a character. Because in this episode, Odo has to reopen an investigation into a murder that had happened 5 years ago when Cardassia was still controlling Bajor and Gul Dukat was still in command of Deep Space Nine. There had been a Bajoran man named Mr. Vatrick that had been murdered, and Gul Dukat had basically handpicked Odo to investigate the murder, which is kind of what started his whole career in being security / law enforcement. And we learn a lot about Odo's backstory as far as what he had been doing since he came from wherever he came from. And that is that he was kind of a sideshow freak, wasn't he, Phil?
Pretty much. Cardassians don't call it Deep Space Nine.
They call it Tulak something.
Yeah. Tulak Noir.
Yep. And so, the one thing that I wish they had shown, as far as what they were talking about, is they mentioned that Odo had perfected something called a Cardassian neck trick. And it's one of those things where I wish... Whoa, hold on, this girl has no hands. That's not right. But anyways, it's one of those things where they mention it and I wish they had actually shown it, because it's something I wanted to see. But aside from that, not only did we learn about some of Odo's backstory, we also learned some of Kira's backstory, because she ended up being quite heavily implicated in this murder back in the day. And come to find out, though, Major Kira wasn't the murderer. And the alibi that she was trying to get from Quark was basically that it was to clear her from being implicated in the fact that she was actually part of the Bajoran underground. And at the end of the day, Odo figures out that it was Mr. Vatrick's wife that had her husband killed, and that her husband was a Cardassian collaborator. So what did you think of that, Phil?
I liked the episode. I thought it was okay. I wouldn't say it was the greatest, but I do like it that it does give some backstory.
Yes, and like I said, this episode is the episode that officially made Odo my favorite character in Star Trek, because... Sorry, not just... Well, in this show, I wouldn't necessarily say he's my favorite character of all of Star Trek, period, because there's some extremely fierce competition for that. But as far as Deep Space Nine goes, Odo is now my favorite character because of this episode, because we see how he becomes the confident constable that he becomes by the time that we see him in the episode The Emissary. And we also see what Major Kira's life was like before she was actually the official liaison to the Federation from Deep Space Nine. And on top of that, we find out the very humorous fact that Quark and Kira have slept with each other. Did you pick up on that when you saw it, Phil?
I do recall that.
Yeah. Basically, Quark said that Kira had been in the bar looking for a job and alluded to the fact that they slept with each other so that Kira could try and get the job. So yeah, that episode, I also give... You know what? No, I am gonna give that one... I'm gonna go 4.9 out of 5 on that one. Like I said, in order for it to be a 5 out of 5 for me, I would have had to actually seen that Cardassian neck trick that they kept talking about. But aside from that, it's still an amazing episode. The next episode is called Second Sight, and basically it's Cisco falling in love with a ghost woman. Do you remember that one?
No, I do not.
Okay, so basically, there's this one woman named Fenna, who looks kind of like a Vulcan, but she's a dark-skinned, Vulcan-like person that manages to seduce, Cisco on the 4-year anniversary of his wife passing away at the Battle of Wolf 359. But she always seems to disappear on Cisco and can never give him a straight answer on where she's coming from. Come to find out, she is actually a telepathic projection from another woman named Nadell, who is the wife of this one terraformer who's trying to bring a star back to life, who is extremely egotistical, by the way. And then basically the dude, the terraformer, basically sacrifices himself to bring this star back, and that in a way causes Fenna to reunite with Nadell, because the way he explained it, his ego was causing a lot of stress on his wife which was causing her to lose control of her telepathic abilities and create this projection that became Fena.
Here to make you worse.
So that one was okay. I give that one a good 2.5 out of 5, honestly. And then the last one, Sanctuary. That's the one where you have that group of 3 million Skria people, the farmer people, that have like really, really rough and bumpy skin. They come through the wormhole and try and settle on Bajor, and Bajor has to turn them away. Do you remember that one, Phil?
Sorry, do not.
Okay. That one was another Kira-centric episode, and this episode, again, even though, again, Odo is my favorite character, this episode also made me appreciate Kira a little bit more, in that she... So go back to the Emissary when she's first introduced, and she just comes off as this hard A-word type of woman that honestly kind of got on my nerves the first time that I saw her. But she's really softened on me since then, and this episode really showed that, in that she does genuinely want to help the Skrean people. Like, she still has a no-nonsense attitude, but, you know, she's not walking around with a chip on her shoulder anymore. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah. And of course, we get some more bonding time between Jake and Nog. And, we see how a prank of theirs goes wrong with one of the Skrean guys, and a fight ends up breaking out. And it's really funny because Nog can't fight back. All he does is let himself get tackled, and then he just squeals like a pig as he tries to free himself. Which reminds me again of the episode Necessary Evil, because the impetus for the episode Necessary Evil is this assassin tries to have Quark killed, and Rom almost gets killed too, and he just starts screaming his head off. And it sounded a lot like Nog when he was getting roughed up, screaming his head off too, and I thought it was funny. So overall, I give that particular episode a 3.5 out of 5. Sanctuary, that is. So, like I said, ultimately I liked all of these episodes, and I don't know if you heard this when I said it, Phil, but I am definitely so far liking Deep Space Nine Season 2 over Season 1 of Deep Space Nine, and honestly, I think I might be liking Season 2 of Deep Space Nine a little bit more than I like TNG Season 2. What do you think?
Everybody has a different opinion. I pretty much like Deep Space Nine over TNG.
Yeah. Because... And you know what? I just realized something. In the latter half of Deep Space Nine, Cisco is bald too, and yet you don't make fun of Cisco for being bald, and yet you make fun of Picard and Nate Rissman?
Cisco can throw a bunch. Cisco was bald by choice, not by determination of having to lose his hair. He shaved his head. He didn't do that because he had to. He wanted.
I know, but again, like I said, how come you make fun of him? How come you don't make fun of him, but you make fun of Matt Rissman?
I don't make fun of Matt Rissman.
You call him shiny.
Because he is shiny.
Oh, and by the way, now that we're done talking about the Trek stuff, I'm going to put my character back in her normal armor. There we go. So anyways, now that we're off the Trek stuff, what would you like to talk about, Phil?
I don't care. Whatever comes to mind.
Alright. Let's see. What'd you end up doing today?
Had some errands to do. Came home. And, still getting the 2 kittens adjusted. So, yeah, that's been having my attention for the last week.
I gotcha. Yeah, I've of course been working pretty hard recently because we had Easter week, which is an incredibly busy week for us. Like, I'm not kidding. Good Friday and the day after, that Saturday, we had 4,500 people visit the caverns each of those days.
Excuse me, do you work here?
I hate you. I hate you so much, Phil. And for anyone wondering, that is something that I get asked quite a bit at the caverns, and one time was asked that at the ticket counter. Which caverns, I will not say. Phil knows, but I'm going to keep it anonymous. So anyways, let me see if I can do this right. Phil, where is cash money?
You gotta do it right. You gotta say it in a low tone, almost like a whisper, but slightly louder than a whisper, but close. Gotta go like,
cash money.
no. Cash money.
Yeah, where is he right now?
It's Tuesday night, correct?
Yes?
Well, do you know what he's doing then? He's at his meeting.
Oh yeah, that's right, the California CCP. I don't know what Crit's doing either. I know Pacific had some form of gaming stream of his own that he was planning tonight. And Baron was doing something with Mr. 24/7 Media.
I see that your brother's been playing the Devil May Cry 2.
Yeah, he's gotten into those games recently. I've never even considered him, honestly. He seems to like that stuff, though, between that and the Doom games.
Oh. He's coming up pretty soon where he has to do his month, don't he?
He actually just did that, I believe, 2 weekends ago. I don't know.
So he already did his 1 month for the year, right?
He had his drill, I believe, around Palm Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. And then, I don't know when his next one is.
My shadow.
Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
I'm waiting for it.
Waiting for what?
See, you already forgot. That, little nectar you promised.
Oh yeah, that's right. I have it. It's just a matter of getting to the post office now to send it.
That isn't that hard to send it to the post office.
It is when you work the hours I work.
Slacker.
And proud of it.
I just have one request.
Yes.
Please, 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 whatever package you put it in, either use a lot of paper.
I've already got that planned out. I've got plenty of bubble wrap.
Oh, bubble wrap. Oh, something to play with after you're done sending it. Okay.
Yeah. See, I've got to go to the post office either tomorrow or Thursday anyways, because I probably already told you this, but I have to, well, you know, I have to send my lightsaber in for a warranty repair. So I gotta drop that off anyways.
You do know, since it's technically considered a liquid, you have to identify that to the post office.
I know, I've done it before because, remember, I've sent Coach and Nick honey too.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know I'm at the bottom of the totem pole.
Well, someone's got to be at the bottom, Phil.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna step away just for a quick second, Phil. I need to get something to drink. Be right
Do you
back.
have my permission that you can get something to drink?
Okay. You can sit there and admire my fluffed pillows, as you always do.
Up to military standard, I.
Alright, I'm back.
Welcome back.
So, I have a question for you, Phil. Tell me about... Was it?
You have an answer.
Tell me about the band Danzig.
Okay. Because I know a little bit about them. Let's just say they're what you would call dark metal.
Okay.
What I mean by dark metal, think like a speed metal band like Testament,
Yeah?
somewhere in that nature. And their name, you know how they got the name, right?
Glenn Danzig?
Yeah, but do you know how he came up? That's a stage name. Do you know how he got that name?
How'd he come up with that?
Okay, it's a little controversial. Alright, there was a town or a city that used to belong to Germany, and it was called Danzig.
Yeah?
And throughout history, most of Europe, people called it Danzig. But after World War I, it kind of made it a semi-independent state, and they still called it Danzig. But after World War II, that was given to Poland, and the Polish people call it Gdansk. So if you go into a map and looking for Danzig, unless someone puts it in parentheses, you do not see the city of Danzig. You see Gdansk.
Okay.
So-
And I've heard of that city.
Yeah. Danzig was, hence, I believe the person, I don't know his real name, but I take it he was either of German origin or a German that happened to be from, our family was from Danzig, and hence the name of the band.
Okay.
I do not know how welcome that name is because, like I said, it is controversial. In Poland, they probably don't like it
Mm-hmm.
because when certain land or after war land goes back and forth between countries, some people want it back. Some people said they had it before. It's controversial.
Okay.
How can it'll be equivalent of say Canada took Maine from it.
And they
Okay,
would
but
they'd
they
name it
don't
whatever
call it.
they want.
Yeah, let's say instead of Maine, they call it Upper Massachusetts, just for sake of argument, because it was part of Massachusetts at one time.
Okay.
So let's just say they call it Upper Massachusetts or British Massachusetts. You know, down here in the States, we probably wouldn't like it. We would always refer to it as, but the Canadians and the British would probably call it, well, like I said, probably Upper Massachusetts. So, yeah. So, having the name Maine and naming things after Maine would probably be fine, but to a Canadian or a British subject, that would probably be offensive. And,
Okay.
the best thing I can probably describe in modern terminology is how the Argentinians feel about the Falklands and how the British feel about the Falklands.
Okay.
One country has it, but the other country says it belongs to them.
Right. Okay, fair enough. But back onto Danzig, the band.
The band was quite popular. I wouldn't say they're very popular.
Sometimes.
Let's just say it was known. The band was known.
Okay.
But you have to remember that genre. If you King Diamond,
Oh,
Testament,
okay.
I forget
That's who
one,
it is.
Metal Church, that type of deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like Venom, basically,
Yeah.
where they are where they're dark and they know it, basically.
Well, I wouldn't say they were singing dark things as opposed with dark metal. It doesn't really mean they're singing about dark.
Right.
It
Like
just happens to be a little bit louder than Metallica or speed metal. But
like Sabbath, for example, they oftentimes get classified as doom metal, and yet
yeah, that type of terminology was because in the late '70s they were trying to categorize everything. There's shock rock, there's glam rock, there's all this other terminology. It's heavy metal,
yeah.
and end of the day, it's heavy metal.
So let me ask you this, and this is kind of something we've talked a lot now for well over a year at this point about metal in general, but we've never actually sat down and talked, hey, what is, for example, heavy metal to you? What is thrash metal to you? What is speed metal to you, etc., etc. So let's have that discussion, shall we?
You should, but remember, it all comes to the point of view of when you start listening to music.
Mm-hmm.
If you were 70s and you're trying to classify heavy metal,
What can I do?
and what's heavy metal,
I
and
know we've had that argument before.
Yeah. Like I said, growing up to it, it's totally different than somebody that's listening 30, 40 years ago.
Right. But
You know what I'm saying?
But what I'm saying is, what is required as far as the sound to be considered such and such subgenre of metal. Like for example, just classic heavy metal. What's your criteria for that? What do you look for?
See, I will go by the name heavy metal.
Uh-huh.
The first reference to that is Steppenwolf, Born to Be Wild.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do I consider Steppenwolf heavy metal? No. But that song and the reference to heavy metal thunder, that is, you can say, the birth of heavy metal. That song. Then again, I prefer going by the trinity of heavy metal: Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and Led Zeppelin.
Right.
You know,
which, as I said, we've had that argument before, and again, hashtag Phil was right.
No, I like I said, you can take some songs of Elvis Presley, and some of his songs you could say kind of have a heavy metal feel to it. Now, do I see Elvis Presley as heavy metal? No.
Yeah.
But there are some songs that he has. Even though, all right, take "Honka Honka Burning Love." Have you ever heard that song?
Yes, I've even sang it.
Okay, that song to me is not what you today would consider a heavy metal song.
No.
But in the 70s, that was kind of heavy, even for Elvis Presley.
It was.
So now, like I said, you can take that, bring it in, take that song, and take it out of the 70s and put it in the 90s. That's nowhere near heavy metal. You would say, oh, well, that sounds more rock than heavy metal.
No.
But to me, I can say, listening to that in the 70s, that was pretty heavy, man. That wasn't heavy for the King. So, but then again, like I said, you have people that put a foot here, put a foot there in their music careers, but they aren't heavy metal.
Yeah.
You know?
Like Queen, for example. I've heard some people claim that they are heavy metal, but to me they are not, because they're way, way, way too pop for that. Now don't get me wrong, they're not a pop band, they're a rock band. But
I will put Queen, for me, I will put Queen as heavy metal. That is plain heavy metal. To me, there's no difference between what Queen was doing, and granted the singing is different, than AC/DC. And I'm not talking about...
I 100%
I'm not talking about Brian Johnson.
Metal.
I am not talking about Brian Johnson. I am talking about Bon Scott.
Well,
If you ever listen to AC/DC with Bon Scott, they were heavy. Today you would say, nah, no. But they were heavy metal. AC/DC always was heavy metal. But they were heavier than they got after Bon Scott died.
Well, metal or not, I do think they are incredibly overrated.
That Black album they had, that first album after Bon Scott died, that is one of the best rock or heavy metal albums that you can say that's out there.
It is, but I am sick to death of it. I'm sick. I am sick of hearing da 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 da.
But that was, that came out in a time in 1980, not 1980s, 1980, where rock and heavy metal was at a bad place. Kind of similar to what happened with when Nirvana came out. It doomed a lot of heavy metal bands. Well, the same thing happened there, because you had the the start and ending of disco.
Yeah, and
that, when AC/DC came out with that Black album, that put an end to disco. That's when you had the disco revival.
But at the same time, around that time is when you had the new wave of British heavy metal going on.
Define new wave. Because if you're saying Judas Priest, because yes, they were more popular about
Oh,
this
I'm
time
not.
during
I'm not. I'm talking basically any band that started their career around the late 70s in England. So bands like Maiden, I almost said Metallica, but no. Maiden, Motorhead, Saxon, allegedly Venom, and yeah, just bands like that had that Judas Priest type sound or that Black Sabbath type sound, but were a little bit more melodic about it.
Well, I never was a fan of Maiden.
I know, and we can
Even with the original singer. I'm not talking about Bruce Dickinson. He's not the original singer.
Paul Di'Anno was in this.
Yeah. I wasn't a very. I love the playing of Motorhead. The sound of Motorhead. Don't get me wrong.
Don't you do it? Don't you do it?
Sound, but Lemmy cannot sing.
Yes, he can.
Him and cannot sing.
Yes, he can.
No, I'm sorry, he cannot sing.
Yes, he can, because don't you know the legend says he has an extra vocal cord in that hole in his face?
Very few songs that I like from Motorhead with Lemmy singing.
But don't you know he has an extra vocal cord in that facial mole of his?
Well, yeah. Probably a little mouth there too.
But again, I can understand why. See, here's the thing. He can sing, but I would understand if you said, I don't like his singing voice.
I will always give it to Motorhead. One thing them people can do is play. Their sound and their music, the sound of their music, awesome. A 10 out of a 10. I don't know many bands that I could say they were a 10 out of 10. Just that, I wish he would, either he couldn't sing, I wish he would have got someone to sing for him. Because that would have been an awesome band. And don't get me wrong, I love that they were writing their own material, because even back then there was a lot of bands that weren't writing their own material. He wasn't something that was big on MTV. He wasn't trying to kiss butt for See, that's another thing. See, different eras. When we got out of the 70s into the 80s, you had to be on MTV.
Hold on. Wasn't MTV, though, not the only game? Wasn't there also things like Headbangers Ball?
No. Headbangers Ball all was on MTV, but it didn't come till later.
Oh.
Later. When MTV originally came out, there was actually 6 videos. That's it. That was a cycle of 6 videos. Now, what was going on was towards the late 70s, around 78 and 79, bands would make a quote-unquote video, which really wasn't a video. What they did was, at like a live show or a stage, they do a stage performance without music, where they play to the recorded of the album. Kind of like what they're doing now.
I know what you're talking about.
I wouldn't even call them music videos, but technically they were, and they were played late at night. Okay? And it might have been like Friday night flights, something like that, where certain time at night, towards the end of the evening, late at night, they'll play the videos, if you want to call them that. And, well, MTV was the 24-hour music television. And that's what put Tom Petty on the map. Was because of them videos.
And didn't Michael Jackson's Thriller also play a big part in the creation of MTV?
That came a couple years later. You have to remember, MTV, I think their big heyday when they really started was like 81. Thriller, I don't think was like 82 or 83.
Okay.
Yeah. So you had 2 years. But the heyday of MTV was from 82 to about 90. 1990.
And then what we know now
as
MTV.
Yeah, they became obsessed with reality TV, and they moved away from videos, and they went to
Things like
Unplugged.
Things like 16 and Pregnant.
Yeah, that didn't have anything to do with music.
No, it doesn't.
But then you had some people that left and they left MTV and they formed VH1.
Right.
But unfortunately, VH1 didn't last that long.
But here's the thing, though. Even though, yes, you say that overall them going to MTV Unplugged was a bad thing, there were still some amazing performances that happened on MTV Unplugged. Like, for example, look up the performance of Stevie Ray Vaughan on MTV Unplugged in 1990. Now, say what you will. I know you've said, Phil, that you're not the biggest fan of Stevie Ray, and I can respect that. But keep in mind that on MTV Unplugged, it was literally just him and a 12-string guitar. And you've seen me play a 12-string guitar, and you know that it's not as easy as a 6-string. And he was playing away on it as if it was nothing. And it truly is like a true demonstration of musicianship.
It is not a band. It's not a band.
What is it?
No. Not a banjo. If he played a banjo, I might give him some credit.
Okay, I can... I can't play a banjo, so I can't say anything.
Yes?
But, yeah, I mean, you have to remember, for some of us that grew up at that time, you know, MTV was big. MTV was big. Then you had, in the mid-'80s, what they call dial MTV. And they always set it up like around 4 or 5 o'clock. Do you know why they always set up around 4 or 5 o'clock, Paul?
Yeah?
Do tell.
So that they could call in and get their requests in?
Yes. And mainly the people that are calling and putting the request in are what at the time?
Working.
Teenagers. No, teenagers. And they're getting at home from middle and high school, getting home from school.
Okay.
So by that
Excuse me?
2, 3 o'clock time, you know, that gives them a couple hours to dial MTV. And dial MTV was, you would dial up your favorite video, and it would be calculated during that time. And then you would get, after a certain time, it'll cut off, and they would calculate, and going by how many people dialed for a certain video, they would do a top. Now
Okay.
the top 10 is not the top 10 like you would see from a top 10 radio station. The top 10 has to do with people calling and voting for their favorite artist. And at the time, if you back in the day, I would hate to say this, but the two of the biggest bands that would always rule MTV top 10, dial MTV, was Kiss and Motley Crue.
And
And it was always
and for the
going
life
head
of
to head.
me, and for the life of me, as far as Motley Crue being concerned, I don't see why. Like, I legit do not see why.
Have you ever heard you have never heard the song "Home Sweet Home"?
Yes, I have, actually.
There's not a girl out there today, tomorrow, next year, next decade that isn't going to listen to that song "Home Sweet." Guys too, but more the girl. You know, they just Motley Crue to me was more a girl-oriented or themed band than even Kiss.
Yeah.
Their whole thing was party and girls. And Kiss was the same way, but more Motley Crue amplified that.
Right.
Where you get bands,
Look at them now.
well, they're still making money. Like, why people are going to their shows? They're still making tens of millions of dollars.
I know.
People going to their concerts.
But here's the thing, for as much as you lambast Kiss for using backing tracks, Motley Crue are way worse at it. It's like, I watched a video of Mick Mars from just recently playing guitar. and the dude genuinely does not look well. Like it wasn't even funny. It was genuinely sad that he was still up there looking so frail he was skeletal trying to play that guitar.
Well, don't forget he's 70-some years old.
He should have.
And he had that arthritis condition.
Yeah.
He did retire, but if you notice, he's been in the news lately. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's been feuding with the rest of the band, kind of like how Ace Frehley has been feuding with the rest of Kiss.
Yep. Well, the difference is he's fighting because he said he was going to retire, and because of his condition, but he could still do an occasional concert. Not many. He can do an occasional concert, and he can still do anything they would do in the studio. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Crew went out and said, okay, we're going to replace you since you can't do it. And they hired somebody, good guy. He's a good guitarist, Johnny Five. I heard some stuff from him. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he was with Alice Cooper, I believe, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yep, he was. But they took McMarr's 25%, and they said, okay, we're only going to give you 5%, and what I mean by 5%, 5% is what he has of the band right now, according to Motley Crue, okay?
Oh.
What he has is 25%. So when they say 5%, when the band goes on tour, he's not there, but he's still getting 5% of the revenue every night. He wants more than his 5%, okay?
Uh-huh.
Now, they said, according to them, that in 2014, they agreed that if anybody could not tour or do anything, their price on Motley Crue, which the four still had 25%, will decrease to 5% and royalties, and then that's it. What I mean by 5% and royalties, 5% of what they make on a tour, and royalties being a percentage of what they sell merchandise, and for the music. How they do their music, it depends on the band. A band like, Rush. There's 3 guys in Rush. The band splits the royalties for every song 3 ways, regardless of who writes the song. Okay?
Yes.
Other bands are totally different. If you write a song, you get a certain percentage. Okay? It all depends on how the structure of the band. Every band is set up differently, like every corporation is set up differently.
Yes, and also since you brought him up, rest in peace to Neil Peart.
Yeah. But according to Motley Crue, Nick McMars is entitled to 5% of the band touring. So as the band is going to concerts, depending on how many seats they sell, the prices of everything, he's still getting 5% for doing nothing.
Also,
now on average,
real quick, Phil, I got to jump in and say hello to a certain friend and ally of mine in my ongoing war to bring justice to the easy mode players. Matt Cave, what's up, man?
You playing on easy mode? Are you using cheats in the gaming guide?
Yes, I am.
So, anyway, Mick Morris is getting 5% for doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, when I mean 5%, if Motley Crue goes on a U.S. tour, they hit 60 cities. He gets 5% out of all their sales out of all 60 cities. Which you're probably looking at maybe, let's just say, take an argument, $10,000 maybe? Take an argument, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. He does 60 cities, that's almost what, $600,000? for doing nothing.
Yeah.
That's not counting the royalties on the merchandise. That's not counting the royalties on songwriting. That's not counting royalties on um like albums. They're still selling, even though in modern times albums don't sell. Talking about previous albums.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still making a good deal of money. Don't get me wrong. 5%, yeah. But I think he's wanting a more of a cut. I think in his mind, maybe 15%, and the other 10% goes to the new guy. Like I said, I don't know their dynamics, but every band when a person leaves goes through this. Kiss, for example, you brought. Originally, the 4 original members owned their makeup.
Let me make sure I have it correct, just to make sure. So it was the 4 original ones were Paul Stanley, Ace Frehley, Gene Simmons, and Peter Criss.
Correct.
Okay, had to make.
They were the 4. They own they actually had to go to the Supreme Court to get it done. They own their makeup. That means that's why King Diamond, when he was sued by Gene Simmons and he told him he had to change it too similar to his makeup, why he was able to win that case.
Huh.
So, but originally, alright, there's technicality. There's actually, when it comes to the original members, 5 different makeups. Paul Stanley stopped using the star for 6 months. He went to what you would call a bandit look. And it looked like a bandit. But he went back to his star.
Yeah.
So there's actually 5 makeups with the original band. Paul Stanley owns the right to his 2. Still to this. Gene Simmons owns his. What's this one?
Hold on a second. Matt Cave says in the chat, if there was a Kiss video game, I'd play it on easy mode. You should do one better, Matt Cave, and make sure you play as Tommy Thayer.
Yeah. And by the way, there is a Kiss video game and pinball game.
I'm
There's
not
quite a few.
surprised.
Yeah. But anyway, when the 2 replacements came, Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent, even though they have different makeup, them 2 guys never owned the makeup. That always belonged to the band Kiss.
Okay.
So
Even
now what
even
happened
for that
wa-
weird period of time where they didn't wear makeup at all?
They still owned the right. Now what happened was typical. Peter Criss is the first one to leave. Even though he left, he still got 25% of the band. The only thing he lost when he left was voting rights. And he got 25% of the band all the way up to like 1988, 1989. He ran into some financial trouble, so Gene and Paul bailed him out, and part of their bailout was buying Peter Criss's makeup. Okay. So now Gene and Paul own Peter Criss's makeup. Peter Criss doesn't have a say over what happens to his makeup. Ace Frehley, when he left, his deal was he got a certain percentage and 25% of the first 3 albums without him. That means he got 25% of Creatures of the Night, 25% of Lick It Up, and 25% of Animalize. And then he was done. His voting power went back to Kiss, but he owned still his rights to his makeup and merchandising. Even Peter Criss to this day still gets paid for merchandising, songwriting, all that other jazz. But he never sold his makeup. What happened was when the union hit, he allows them, long as he gets paid, they're allowed to use his image. But that doesn't stop him from putting on that makeup. He can go, like there's a video, he did a Dunkin' Donuts commercial in 2002 after he left Kiss. But he was allowed to put the makeup on, and he was allowed to put on the costume, and Kiss couldn't stop him.
Wow.
He can't stop them, but he can't. They can't. He can't stop them, and they can't stop him.
So,
But he gets paid every year for that makeup.
so let me ask you this then. What is it that's been going on in the news with him recently about how, A, he has like these really controversial stories about specifically Paul and Gene, and B, how he said that if he was to ever play any of their last shows, he'd have to get a huge payday. What's going on with that?
Okay. Ever since he left, and let's get this right. When Peter Criss left, Peter Criss really didn't leave. They fired him. Okay, the other three voted him out.
Okay.
So Peter Criss really did not have a say of leaving. They wanted him gone. Ace Frehley, they never wanted him to leave. Even back then when he threatened to leave, they were willing to keep him in the band and even let him do if he wanted solo, he can do solo. But they have messed. Let's just put it to you this way: Gene and Paul have done some things, and it hasn't come out till many years later. All right, that some of their things they've done, and particularly to past and present members, they did dirty.
You already told me about what happened with Eric Carr.
Yeah, that's the dirtiest. But with Ace Frehley, the man leaves, and ever since he left, I mean the first time, from 82 to 96, any opportunity they get, it's a bashing thing. They got a bash. Okay? And as Kiss fans, we really don't like it. You know, if you don't have something nice to say, just don't say it at all. Well, yeah, they get them back. They go back. They don't go back as full members. When they had their reunion tour, they were just like Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer is now. They were paid. Now, what they were paid compared to what other people got paid is a totally different thing. But they weren't like voting members where they can decide, like they were back in the day, oh, we have a say on what's going on. They didn't. Okay? And Peter Criss always resented that fact. You know? But then again, if you know the history, he kind of did that to himself. No one told him to sell back his percentage.
So
he did that.
So what happened then?
He wanted, and this goes back, and like I said, this is a long story, but if you, to get it, you have to go this route. Ace Frehley, when they said the reunion tour was done and the band was done in 2000, he took them at their word. Then they asked him to come back because they wanted to do a tour of Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. He said fine. So he came back to do that. But he wasn't happy because Peter Criss wasn't there. That's the first time they put Eric Singer, first time in the makeup. Which, you know, I guess it didn't bother him as much as he thought, but he was getting paid. So after they get back, their final little gig, if you want to call it a gig, was the Olympics in Utah, Salt Lake City. And after that, he presumed it was done. Okay? A couple months later, they decide they're going on tour with Aerosmith. And Aerosmith wanted the original band. No substitution.
Yes.
And the agreement was they were going to go one night Kiss as the opening act, one night Aerosmith, with a third band actually being the opening act. So Aerosmith one night would be number 2, Kiss would be 3, if they got all 4 members. So they tried to get Ace to come back, and he said, I'm not opening up for a band that opened up for us. No way. Mm-mm. So it was a pride thing. It wasn't even over money. So, and he said, I thought the farewell tour was it. so he didn't go back. So to do the tour, Aerosmith said, okay, we'll tell you what. You open up for us as a second band, but you gotta have 3 original members. So what did they do? They put Eric Singer on hold, if you want to call it that, and they brought Tommy as the lead guitarist and Peter Criss as the drummer. Okay. Yeah. So they got 3 original members, 1 replacement.
And now
Okay.
I get it why you call him Tommy Faker.
Okay. The difference between Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer, Eric Singer does not try to copy Peter Criss. Tommy Thayer, there are some songs I can show it to you. No former member, alright, Bruce Kulick does not sing a certain lyric in Shout Out Loud. Only Ace did it up until Tommy Thayer shows up. Bruce Kulick never sung any of Ace Frehley's songs. Tommy Thayer sings Ace Frehley's Kiss songs. Yeah. There's other things, but as I'm going on, after that tour is when Kiss decided, okay, we done this Aerosmith tour, we don't need Peter Criss no more. That's when they brought Eric Singer back for the final time. And you have the current band as it is today. So, yeah. For me, as a Kiss fan, Kiss died, or you want to say, had their farewell in 2000. I am not a fan of anything that's happened after 2000.
I definitely can understand that. I mean...
So, but there's things going on, like I said, even back early 2003. Peter Criss doesn't own his man. Gene Paul bought it from him outright. As far as Ace Frehley, think of it, if you ever noticed Dr. Pepper, most, in some places, is bottled by Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Right?
In fact, I'm pretty sure
But
there's a plant
Coca-Cola-
that does that like an hour north of where I live.
But the thing is, Coca-Cola does not own Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is owned by the Dr. Pepper 7-Up RC Cola. That's who owns. Coca-Cola pays royalties to manufacture in certain areas Dr. Pepper. Same thing goes with Ace Frehley and his makeup. Ace Frehley owns his makeup, but Kiss, since they signed a deal, can use his image anytime, any way they want, but they have to yearly pay him a royalty fee. You see what I'm saying? He can't control it. He can't say how they use it. He can't stop them from putting someone in the makeup. But he still gets paid, and technically, under that circumstances, like 7-Up, owns the Dr. Pepper. Owns the makeup.
So
that's how 2 people can own the same idea.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So, speculation now. This dirt that Ace Frehley allegedly has on Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, what would you guess that it is?
Dirt that we probably none of us know. Dirt probably like certain acts of could be anything, romance, who knows. Let's just put it to you this way: whatever he has never spoke on it. But if it was Gene and Paul, they have already spilled beans on Ace. They have already talked. Look, if I was Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, I would never show up at any of these Kiss shows. Why? They talk bad about him all the time. If I was them, well, Peter Criss is retired. Leave the man be. He doesn't bother anybody. You don't hear him. He doesn't bother you. So saying what Paul Stanley said, first of all, is an insult. Saying that if you put them in the band Kiss, you might as well call it Piss. Well, let's put it to you this way. There's there's growing up as a Kiss fan, you were either a fan of the whole band or you had your favorite. And to put someone down that was in a founding member of your band, regardless of whatever reasons why he left or what he's done, doesn't give you a right to constantly put him down. And Paul Stanley has done that. And he has attacked the dead. What they did to Eric Carr is not only disgusting. And see, this didn't come out 2 years later, Paul. That man died in 1990. Nobody knew anything of what happened in 1990. Had the fans knew in 1990 91, excuse me, what happened to Eric Carr, people would be so pissed. Kiss would have probably been a dead band by 92.
So let me ask you, so can you just really quick remind everyone watching what exactly happened?
Okay, and there's a lot of controversy and different stories depending on who you're talking to. Okay, you have to go back a couple of years before. All right, and I hate to do this, but the only way to describe it is so people get an
Do it.
understanding of what happened. Okay, in 1987, Eric Carr and Paul Stanley, even though it was never official, fans didn't know about it, they weren't getting along.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't talk to each other. Whatever the reason. Now, there's speculation, and I don't know sources, okay? But the rumor mill is Eric Carr was seeing this girl, I forget, Carrie something. She's on YouTube a lot. She dated, afterwards, what's that guy? Enrico Iglesias, whatever his name is. John Elway. But, yes, she was at the time, she was a young girl, and she was dating Eric Carr. And the story I heard, and I got this from a friend that used to be on the, you can call them a bodyguard. That's what they are. Let's just say, work for the touring crew. What happened was there was a show. And one of the first times Eric Carr brought his girlfriend there, she was sitting on the couch, and Paul Stanley was trying to make a move on her, and Eric Carr was kind of looking at what was going on, but didn't say anything. And his girlfriend kept saying, I'm here for Eric. I'm here for Eric. And supposedly Paul Stanley was trying to make a move on her.
I see.
And that was caused that argument where he didn't bother. And in 1988, I don't want to say Kiss took a break, but they did a what you would call kind of like a greatest hits album.
Yeah.
And they took a break, but Paul Stanley did a solo tour. And it wasn't much of a tour, it was more a bunch of little clubs here on the East Coast. And one of the people he had in his band was Eric Singer as the drummer. So, I will tell you a story I know. He came here to Newark, Delaware, alright? And me and my friend went there to where he was hanging out at the motel where he was staying, trying to get an autograph, right? So he kind of didn't want to come out, didn't want to be bothered, okay. So we decided we're going to the mall. Happens to be that mall that was in the news where people were shot at down here in Christiana.
Oh, yes.
So we're walking the mall, and lo and behold, we see 3 county cops and 3 state cops walking behind these people. And we're like, okay, let's go see what's up. And it turned out it was Paul Stanley with 2 girls. Followed behind was one Eric Singer. Now, I wasn't a Black Sabbath fan. My friend was a Black Sabbath fan.
Yes.
And he goes, dude, that's Eric Singer. I said, who? Oh, he was a drummer for a couple albums in Black Sabbath. He goes, I'm going to get his autograph. So he goes up to Eric Singer. And what happened is Paul Stanley went and sat on the bench with the 2 girls, facing away from us, with the cops standing by him. and Eric Singer was like chowing down on a pizza. And my friend goes, "You're Eric Singer." He goes, "Yes, I am." And he goes, "Could I have an autograph?" He goes, "Sure." And he goes, and he was telling like how he loved his drumming on Seven Star and Eternal Idol.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Cool." And I said, "Can I have your autograph?" Because I didn't know who he was. I figured I might as well get an autograph, right?
Yeah.
And it was cool, and I said, "Okay." There was an article in the paper, a local paper, that said that Paul Stanley was an ex-member of KISS. And I asked the dude, I said, is this a permanent thing? He goes, "No, this is just a small thing, and he's going back." So I said, "Oh, cool." And I said, my friend was saying how much of a great drummer. He goes, "Well, you going to be a drummer in KISS?" It was a joke, right? And then Paul Stanley, for no reason, said loud as clear as day, he said, "Soon."
Oh,
Now, this
wow.
is 1988, and I'll never forget hearing that. I'm like, wow. And Eric Singer's eyes and his head went down. I said, "Dude, what did that mean?" He goes, "It's best not saying anything." And I said, "Dude," I did this as a whisper. I said, "You mean you might be replacing Eric Carr?" Now, this is 1988. And he goes, "Dude, I can't talk about it."
My goodness.
And that was the end of the conversation. So, in 1988, a couple days later, they go to New York. And Eric Carr and Gene Simmons goes there. And after the show, Eric Carr goes, "That man is going to have my job." And he pointed right at Eric Singer. Pointed. And everything come to find out. Unbeknown to people, he got sick after the 1990 tour.
What did he get sick with again?
He had cancer, but he had a rare cancer. It was on his heart.
Oh.
So after the surgery, it looked good, but then a couple weeks later, it came back, and he ended up dying. Well, he got mad because he wanted to do, even though he wasn't up to 100%, he wanted to do the drumming on the album. Kiss told him no. And when they did the video, "God Gave Rock and Roll to You," the Bill and Ted song,
Yeah.
he demanded that they put him in, at least in the video. Okay? So they agreed to put him in the video. Now, he is technically on that song. He's singing background towards that song, but he's not playing drums. That's all Eric Singer. All the drumming is Eric Singer.
Okay.
But on the video, Eric Carr did it. Now, after that video, a couple months later is when he died. Now, the big question people asked is, did Kiss fire him before he died? And you'll get some people saying they did. Some people said they didn't. Some people say they were trying to get him to quit.
What's your stance?
His girlfriend has said, all right, there's a video on YouTube with Ace Frehley, where Ace Frehley said Eric Carr called him and said they fired him. Okay? Then there's a video with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend said she heard Paul Stanley tell him sometimes marriages and people in bands don't work out. And that after that he wouldn't talk to him, and that they were trying to get him to resign.
Uh-huh.
I believe they were either way, fire, resign, they were trying to get rid of him. And a lot of people will say this, and even Mr. Stanley has said it lately. Him doing that practically killed him. He didn't shoot him. He didn't stab him. But you don't have to do that to somebody. You can
Basically,
actually...
It was almost like doing that took away his will to live.
There you go. So, For me, had I known in 1990 what I knew in 2003, my Kiss fandom would have ended there, right then and there. That's nothing against Eric Singer. Eric Singer didn't have nothing to do with it. But I think that's a case where Gene Simmons took a back step and let Paul Stanley run the show. And Paul Stanley didn't want him there. And had he not had been sick, it would have been fine. He could have found another gig. I think he could have done quite well somewhere else. But, yeah, the way they did it, I think they put the man in the grave.
Yeah, that is just wrong. Like, truly. Because the way I see it, and I know they kind of did, but at the same time, they could have done so in a far more honorable, less backhanded, well, not backhanded, passive-aggressive way. Basically saying, listen, we don't want you here and you're fired. Just outright fire him, instead of saying something to the effect of, well, sometimes it just doesn't work out, but then doing things to undermine him to get him to quit.
Remember this, and this is coming from EDO telling you this. He might not have been a original member, but I guarantee you, if he's not number one, he is definitely number two when it comes to popularity as a Kiss member.
You showed me that one clip of how good he was at both drumming and singing at the same time, and yeah, he was.
But there are people that don't like Kiss, but they do like Eric Carr. So, but yeah, man, if I'm a big Kiss fan. I definitely stopped after the farewell tour the first time. But had I known what happened to Eric Carr back in 91, my thing with Kiss would have ended in 91.
I gotcha. And Matt Cave real quick says, alright gentlemen, I'm heading to bed and finishing an episode of TNG. I'm up to the 14th episode of Season 5, Conundrum. I feel like I know that one. What is that one? I'm gonna look that one up.
I just want to say real quick, Matt Cave, I'm so happy that I finally found out that what happened to Eddie Munster. Eddie Munster is the Matt Cave. You look identical to Eddie Munster. I don't know if anybody ever told you that. But yeah. I hope hey, good for like
I've been in here. I've been in.
Oh, hey, Crit. What's up?
What do you think of Eddie Munster there, Crit? Do you know? Eddie Munster was probably the one member of the family that didn't get enough respect.
So, how long have you been there, Crit? I'm sorry I didn't notice you sooner.
You never noticed
the whole Kiss history.
Alright, I'm sorry. I didn't acknowledge you.
He was Eddie Munster. He admits to it. He did. See? He admits to it. Bill family. I always find it.
Oh no.
Said it's the widow's peak it gave me away.
Oh, unfortunately I'm being called
It's alright, man. We're gonna end this stream anyways, because I do have work in the morning.
Yeah, sorry.
It's alright.
You do work? You work? Where do you work at?
Phil, you already know the answer to that.
Excuse me, sir. Do you work here?
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we will talk to you later. And just remember, everyone,